Hey guys, welcome back, and we are back with another week of box office. I'm sorry that this video is coming out on Wednesday. It got crazy this week, but I am back, and we have so much to discuss about because this is by far the juiciest season, the juiciest week of box office we have gotten in a minute. So let's get into it. Up first, we have Juliet, and that did horrendous. 98% last week, and 1,034,493 to 91% and 781K. I mean, this is the kind of drop that, like, I'm astonished by this. Like, this is a horrendous drop. I don't think there was any major, like, casting that left, people that left. Like, I know D'Amelio is in the show still. So let me know if you guys know of anything, because I don't follow the casting for this, but I know that there was some semi-celebrities in the cast. But yeah, this is very out of left field, because Juliet has been doing very well this year. And it had a small, like, break-off point in the fall where it looked kind of bad. I think Juliet, I mean, it's been going for, what, 3 years now? Yeah, 23... 24, yeah, it's been going for 3 years now, so obviously it's going to start to slow down a little bit, but I think this still has a couple of more years left in it. However, if this, continues to happen, a lot, inconsistent grosses, or it just does under 1 million, then yeah, the show could close by the end of the year, or in 2026. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to see what the next couple of weeks hold. I think a show is kind of on death's door when it doesn't do good in the summer. So Juliet just, in my opinion, had a blip of a week, and I think it'll be back up because it was doing so well. But it is very interesting developments. When are we gonna call it quits on Boop? I mean, this show is doing absolutely terrible. 76% last week and 549K. This week, 78% and 508K. I mean, that is an insane number for a musical that we now confirmed by Broadway Journal. Said that I think it cost like 876K. The screenshot will be there. And so yeah, it's like losing money, like 300K a week. I mean, this show has no future prospects. I'm sorry, but Boop is a failure, and it's gonna close in this month. There's no way that it will make it past June. This is gonna close in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to see Boop, go and see it now, because this thing it's dead in the water. Vista Social Club continues to do fantastic. 94% last week and 1,043,197, and this week 95% and 1,075,909. Cabaret had one of the worst weeks ever. 89% and 892K, which was already pretty terrible, to this week's 79% and 750K. Now, mind you, if you have seen Cabaret, you know that this show is Great Comet levels of budget. So it is losing money in droves. It cannot continue. This has to be making $1 million at minimum. And so unless they have big stunt casting lined up after Eva and Orville, I'd pack this thing up. And most star revivals tend to go a year, so it would make sense that Cabaret is probably going to close at the end of this year, but we will see. Dead Outlaw continues to just do okay. It's kind of what I expected, 91% last week and 442K to 85% and 484K. Having an average ticket of $67 is not good. And a lot of people are saying how maybe Happy Ending is the underdog show. And I think it is, but I think that Dead Outlaw has taken its place. Maybe Happy Ending is making, between 800 to 900K. It is no longer the underdog show. I'm sorry to tell you this, but Dead Outlaw would not do as well, needs Best Musical. Maybe Happy Ending can, I think, in my opinion, survive without winning Best Musical, 100%. I truly think it can. And even the week that Darren was out, it didn't even fall by like 100K. I mean, it fell significantly, but not by as much as, when Nicole's out or Audra's out. And so I really do think Dead Outlaw is in dire need of Best Musical. And if it doesn't, I think it could close as early as Labor Day, but I feel like they might try and get it to January, so we'll see. But yeah, I think if it doesn't win Best Musical, it's looking very grim, I think, for Dead Outlaw. So it needs to win Best Musical, in my opinion, to make it to the end of the year. If it doesn't, I mean, I think if it can get into the 600K range in the summer, and let's say it doesn't win Best Musical, then it can make it to the end of the year. But luckily it's not a hugely expensive show to put on. But any show that's doing this kind of numbers is not good. Death Becomes Her continues to be a hit. 91% last week and 1,176,556 to 89% and 1,076,188. Floyd Collins is doing very poor. Again, it's a limited engagement, but I think it's proven that Eva and Jeremy are a lot more vulnerable, and that it's not like a Jonathan Groff or a Hugh Jackman or a Daniel Radcliffe, where it doesn't matter how long they've been away, or if they've been here for the last season, or if it's a very unconventional show. People go and see them. With Jeremy and Eva, it appears that's not the case, which I think dents their profile significantly. But Floyd Collins did 81% last week and 512K, and this week a horrendous 68% and 501K. Gypsy played to 71% last week and 1,240,426 to this week's 77% and 1,117,085. So overall, it's doing pretty good grosses wise, but its capacity is weak. I went and saw it a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of empty seats. So without Audra, I think that this show really has no future. But Gypsy has notoriously not had a long-term run on Broadway, long-term run in New York. But yeah, Hadestown had a horrible fall, but I think it'll be okay because it's done fantastic up to this point. So again, I think it's just a blip. 97% to 90%, and 791K to 614K this week. So it did pretty poorly, but Hadestown has been going on for 6 years now, more like 5 years actively, so it's made it half a decade, so it's already exceeded my expectations, and I think that this show will have many more years left in it. But 2023 was a vulnerable year, but it seems like the show has gotten a revitalization. But I wonder how long that will last. Hell's Kitchen fell pretty significantly from 93% and 1,182,616 to 85% and 911K. Just in Time is just blowing my mind. 106% last week and 905K. This week 103% and 1,119,111. Its average ticket is almost $200. This is a mega hit, and I think it's only going until November. But I think if Jonathan Groff wasn't in this, I don't think this would be doing as well, and I think no one can disagree with me on that. This is really the Jonathan Groff show, and he could win the Tony again. Yeah, I think that it's Jonathan Groff that everyone's loving, not the show. Maybe Happy Ending, doing amazing. 93% last week and 892K. This week, 97% and 903K. Again, proving that it's not the underdog show that it once was. Moulin Rouge played to 97% last week and 1,214,024 to this week's 96% and 1,178,862. So again, it is doing much better because Boy George and Jordan Fisher are in the production. But big reminder that before this, it was doing very poorly, and I do think that this show could close at the end of the year. But we'll see. Mincemeat played to a solid 96% last week and 793K to this week's 95% and 744K. I do wonder if Mincemeat was not, a limited engagement, would it be doing as well? Because it is, your smaller show that's not based on an IP, and yet it's doing better than Dead Outlaw, and it isn't, in my opinion, a misfit story because it's making solid box office and it had a lot of buzz coming in. And I really do think the fan base is the people that are loving it. Maybe one of the reasons why is that its audience is not just preteens, like Be More Chill, that show had a lot of buzz, even though critics were not wild on it, and obviously Mincemeat is by many seen as a better production than Be More Chill, but I think it's kind of that cult musical but an audience that can afford to see it. Curves closing 85% to 71%. Last week 367K, this week 317K. I mean, come on, we need to close this. I don't want it to close. I think it's important to have stories like this on, but it's doing horrible at the box office. And I expect it closing very soon. And then we have the big news, and that is Redwood closing this month. 75% last week and 642K. This week, 76% and 565K. And I think, again, this was a smart move from the producers. Even with Adina, the show was not doing well. So imagine what it would do without Adina. Show was supposed to, Adina was only supposed to be in it until August. And this was clearly a show that no one liked, and it showed at the box office. Smash got completely shut out of the Tonys. It kind of shows, because last week it played to 82% capacity and 980K, and this week 78% and 909K. So it is technically still doing very well, but you're starting to see a decline in the show, which I kind of felt like maybe would happen. And so we're starting to see the effects of not getting a Tony nomination, and maybe the word of mouth getting to it. I always kind of felt like this maybe could have been another New York. Starts out strong and then plummets. So we will see. Again, I don't want it to happen, even though I hate the show, but this is very concerning. I think the next 2 weeks we will have a more definitive answer, but the way I see it, this could close it by the end of the summer or by the end of the year. Stranger Things surprisingly did pretty bad. Last week, 95%. This week, 76%. And 1,080,720 to 906K. And again, I think that the reason why this isn't doing so hot is because, as I've stated in previous videos, this is not a show that is got the nostalgia factor. You know what I mean? And if you even look at like shows like Shrek or SpongeBob, for example, it's not like it's a lot of these major IP shows that fail. I found a current trend, and not all of them, but just Shrek, SpongeBob, Stranger Things as examples of shows that don't have like a 20-year gap or like a decade gap where nothing's going on with the property, as opposed to something like The Lion King or Aladdin or something like that, and I think that nostalgia is such a huge business driver for this IP show, and I think they should have waited for the series to be over to give us Stranger Things The First Shadow, or give us a story set after season 5. I think that, if you waited 20 years, when the Stranger Things fandoms are in their 40s, they're going to be like, oh my god, 1, we can afford to see this, and 2, oh my god, this was our childhood, and I think it's missing that factor, which is why I think it is underperforming. It's not doing bad, but it's underperforming. I also think that it having a 3-year gap in between seasons killed the momentum, but I think when season 5, the trailer comes out, box office is going to boom. It's going to be huge with tourists, but it isn't like an Aladdin, where Aladdin does better when tourists come, but it still manages to maintain very healthy grosses in the fall and in the January slumps. It probably was also affected by very poor reviews and no Best Play nomination, which hurts the show no matter how big the IP is. This isn't a show that the New Yorkers are going to see. This is something that the tourists, the families are going to see. I think this is a very, when I saw it, a lot of young kids, a lot of young families, and so I definitely do think that this show might struggle a bit. They're not marketing it. I think people, when I see Stranger Things The First Shadow promotional trailers, all the comments are, oh, I thought this was season 5, forget about it. So it seems like people don't really care about this. When in fact, spoiler alert, The First Shadow is kind of pivotal to seeing season 5, in my opinion, and I feel like if Netflix would have marketed it as you need to see this before season 5, where this will give you some spoilers, a taste of what season 5 could bring, I think people would come and see it more. And I think a lot of people just don't know it exists, or I think there's a perception that you don't need to see this, and I think that Netflix needs to fix this, although their marketing even for their TV shows are pretty poor. But I don't think it's going to be in any trouble. Sunset Boulevard, 83% last week, and 995K. This week, 81% and 1,020,971. The Great Gatsby fell from 95% last week and 1,117,052 to 83% and 908K. So that's one of Gatsby's worst weeks, but it's fine. It's going to do great. Last 5 years. Last 5 years, guys. I mean, I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen. So it fell from 92% last week and 759K, which was pretty, underwhelming to begin with, to 83% and 613K. An average ticket under $100. What an embarrassment for Nick Jonas. And truly, it's because people are seeing the show is not good. You know, even the most loyal fans aren't enough to give this show the juice it needs. So thank God it's a limited engagement. It also probably was hurt by the fact that it got completely snubbed, and rightfully so. And clearly audiences are sending a message that you can't just put in a star and expect people to pay top dollar to see it. Outsiders fell from 101% and 1,329,200 to 99% and 1,124,988 this week. So that's the box office for this week. Some interesting developments, mainly that we have one show closing and we got Boop and Coves very much going to close. Stranger Things in the last 5 years are not performing the way that people thought. Overall, a very exciting week for box office, and great clickbait, great views. But again, I hope all shows do well. I don't want to see shows fail, but I'm going to say it how it is. And that's what you come to this channel for. So like, sub, comment. Here's my Instagram, follow, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.